Star Wars. What once seemed like a limitless galaxy full of potential has started to feel incredibly claustrophobic. The franchise as it stands consists of 12 feature films, 105 hours of television, and too many video games, comic books, and novels to name, all about the same span of 67 years' time. Disney's mission for the foreseeable future appears to be to fill in every minute of screen time unaccounted for in that near 3/4 of a century. The latest of these in-betweenquels is Obi-Wan Kenobi, or How I Spent My Summer Vacation. Spoilers ahead for the people who care about spoilers. A brief summary of the plot. A retired warrior turned lumberjack is reluctantly called back into the line of duty to protect a precocious young girl from the forces of evil. Basically, it's every Wolverine story ever written. But the plot doesn't matter, even to the people who absolutely loved the show. No one is doing a Twitter thread of what's next for Ice Cube II and his band of merry men. There aren't any ongoing discussions about how one of those Jurassic Park mosquitoes is actually Mr. Detective Pants from that one episode of Clone Wars. There's nothing to discuss. In spite of the fact that there's not a whole lot of material to work with, the performances of Obi-Wan Kenobi are pretty strong. Even when he was working with the clunkiest of George Lucas dialogue, Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi was always one of the best parts of the prequel trilogy. And that remains to be true here.
I'm sorry, Anakin. For all of it.
You can tell he has a real affection for the character. Though I somewhat question the inclusion of a young Princess Leia, it's hard to deny that Vivian Lyra Blair is a standout cast member. My only concern is that her parents have probably signed the next 10 years of her life away to Disney for an endless parade of empty spin-offs. The Princess Leia Diaries, or Little Lady Leia's Princess Pals. And while I'm happy for the man to get paid, the return of Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker still doesn't seem completely necessary. He appears a handful of times throughout the series as obscured-faced Darth Vader and in flashbacks where he plays a very convincing 40-year-old, 20-year-old.
I am not your failure, Obi-Wan.
A common argument against prequels is that due to prior entries in the saga, we already know that certain characters aren't in any real danger. This itself is not necessarily a flaw, it just depends on where the focus of the story actually lies. An origin story exists to tell you just that. An origin. Its purpose isn't to show if our protagonist makes it out alive, but how they did, what they have learned, and how they may have changed as they've grown. Again, it really depends on the goal of the story to evaluate what the stakes are. A good example of this is the 2020 series finale of The Clone Wars. Order 66 has begun. Ahsoka Tano and Commander Rex are trapped on a plummeting Star Destroyer with a battalion of brainwashed clone troopers who are trying to kill them. We know that the two survive since they return years later in the Rebels series. But the stakes aren't if they will survive, it's how they can survive and not kill their former comrades in the process.
You're a good soldier, Rex. So is every one of those men down there. They may be willing to die, but I am not the one who is going to kill them.
I'll be honest, I really just bring this up to point out that the finale of Clone Wars is the best Star Wars anything that's been produced in the past decade. The stakes of Obi-Wan Kenobi, on the other hand, are almost entirely focused on the survival of 3 of the most recognizable characters in the Star Wars mythos. In fact, the one character that actually could run the risk of dying ended up surviving after all, limping off to the next in-betweenquel, no doubt. Being an original creation of the series, Reva is the only main character with real autonomy. She's free to move around the game board in unexpected ways. While Obi-Wan and the Skywalkers are restricted to certain movements, choreographed so they end up where we find them in A New Hope. Moses Ingram's Reva spends 90% of the show as an overly aggressive employee looking for a promotion, until we learn she is actually trying to get revenge on Vader for 66ing her fellow younglings back in the day. Why she had to get a new job title to accomplish this, I have no idea. I mean, what an incredible amount of time she spent on this long con. So you're telling me that she signed up for Bad Guy Incorporated with the explicit intent of trying to surprise attack an evil magic man who can basically read minds? Sure. Fine, whatever. For a direct follow-up to Revenge of the Sith, a movie where the hero just assumes his enemy will burn to death, there is a shocking amount of that same walking away from a battle without proof of death mentality. Come on, man, this is like basic horror movie rules. bullet to the head to make sure the killer's dead. But again, due to the hand of fate, the characters can only make so many moves. Vader just watches idly as the embodiment of his hatred is slowly dragged away mere feet from where he is standing. Same with Obi-Wan in the finale. I mean, even at this early point in his career, Darth Vader is already a mass murderer. But Obi-Wan leaves him alive because Anakin is metaphorically dead?
From a certain point of view.
This fucking guy. Major plot developments can't happen in an in-betweenquel, so all that's possible is character exploration. But the series doesn't even accomplish that. The moment with the most wasted potential comes in Episode 3 when Obi-Wan briefly mentions his parents.
As Jedi were taken from our families when we were very young. I still have glimpses of my mother's shawl, my father's hands. I think I had a brother. I don't remember him. I wished I did.
This is perhaps the only new thing we learn about Obi-Wan in the series, and I would have loved it if they followed that thread further. See how that shaped Obi-Wan as a person. And it seems this point still eludes people, but the Jedi suck. Buried under the bombastic bluster of the prequels, George Lucas tried to convey how ineffectual and short-sighted the Jedi were. Their downfall was inevitable because of their hubris. Obi-Wan doesn't remember his family because the Jedi took him away from them when he was younger than Anakin.
He's too old.
Separating kids from their parents so they can grow up to become emotionless, sexless space priests is bad. Rian Johnson knew.
The legacy of the Jedi is failure.
But the series and series like them continue to be successful because we as a culture don't seem to value story in the same way we once did. A well-crafted story is not as important to us as are the moments that it contains. We need something succinct and gifable to hit us right in the feels so we can memify and emojilize our point across. I mean, I liked the moment between Anakin and Obi-Wan in the last episode.
You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did.
But was it worth the 4 hours that preceded it? Also, it's just a blatant recreation of a great moment that happened in Rebels. But Disney knows that they can get away with it because you don't care about Rebels. Narratively, nothing can be accomplished in an in-betweenquel. And really, today's Star Wars fans don't care if anything happens. They don't want anything to happen. Because when things don't happen, nothing changes. And when nothing changes, your childhood can't be ruined. You're safe, little boy. You know that Santa will give you your favorite toy eventually. The only question is, will it be now or 4 hours from now? The thing we know is going to happen doesn't happen until it finally does. Disney's Star Wars culture fascinates me, and I'm constantly trying to label it. At the moment, I'm landing on the comparison of 5-year-old at the zoo. We basically know what to expect when we see a new Star Wars, and we sure do love when we see it happen. It's the era of
Mommy, look at doggy. Ooh, a big doggy.
does it matter that our characters typically end up in the same place they started in? Do we really need to fill the timeline in with every single story bridge? I mean, what are we even doing?
Hello there.
Oh my god, he said the thing. He said the thing that he said in the other thing. I could just die. And one more thing, a quick run-through of various nitpicky things in no particular order. Obi-Wan basically becoming Leia's Funkle despite the fact that in 10 years she's going to send him a letter that amounts to whom this may concern. Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen single-handedly fended off Darth Lady, and yet they were still mowed down by the only stormtroopers who apparently had good aim. Kumail Nanjiani characters just seem to exist to stick out and say, "Hi, I'm special guest star Kumail Nanjiani, and this is how I like to crack wise." Liam Neeson's beard is practically falling off of his face. Hey, wait a minute. How did all those people fit inside that snowspeeder? And why is this the most boring action I've ever seen in Star Wars?